In today's video, I'm going to explain to you how to cut properly. So, how to lose weight the right way. So, what is a cut? A cut is a period of intentional calorie deficit. So, you're eating below your maintenance level of calories. So, take myself, for example. I'm 23 years old, 6 foot, fluctuating between 215 and 220 pounds right now. For me, my maintenance calories are around 3,000 calories. And so for me to cut, I would need to eat below this 3,000 calorie mark. And I would need to be in what's called a calorie deficit. The goal of a cut is to lose fat while also preserving muscle. The goal of the cut is not to just get as skinny as possible, it's to lose fat and not lose muscle. And in terms of cutting, there are two main ways that one can actually cut. The first way that one can cut is an aggressive cut. And I would not recommend this for your every typical day individual, someone who likes to go to the gym 3 to 4 times a week, just likes to get their activity levels in. I would only recommend this aggressive cut style to bodybuilders or people who fluctuate going back and forth from bulking and cutting, because an aggressive cut is really hard on your body. An aggressive cut, you cut a lot more calories than you would in a regular cut, which I'll get into later in the video. But yeah, I would only recommend an aggressive cut for someone who's either a bodybuilder, an athlete, or somebody who's trying to reach a certain weight goal or a certain look for only a certain period of time. Because with an aggressive cut, your weight will fluctuate super heavily, and you're more likely to end up rebounding and regaining that weight, which again for a bodybuilder is perfect, because a bodybuilder wants to cut to get as skinny and as shredded as possible for a show, and then they want to re-put all that weight on so that they can bulk up and get bigger for their next show and then cut it all again. So aggressive cuts are really good for people like bodybuilders and athletes or people on a super serious time crunch. But for people trying to lose fat long term, and for people trying to shred down and keep it shred down for long term, I would not recommend an aggressive cut. What I would recommend for people trying to keep the weight off long term is what's called a sustainable cut. And that's what I'll be going over in this video. A sustainable cut is designed for long term fat loss and for consistency, because it helps us build good habits and it incorporates things that won't allow us to, again, regain that weight and rebound that weight gain, which, again, an aggressive cut with that, you are very likely to regain that weight. Because, for example, with the bodybuilders at the bodybuilder show, after they do the posing and stuff, what do you always see them do? They're always eating like a stack of 10 donuts or a big old cookie or some cake or a 10 by 10 Big Mac, because it's like now they're going to start bulking again. So that's good for an aggressive cut. But again, if you're trying to lose weight and keep the weight off, and you don't want to gain the weight back, I'd recommend a sustainable cut, which is what I'm going over in this video. So stick around for that. So I honestly think cutting is easier than bulking. So losing weight is definitely easier than gaining weight. But still, I do see people struggle. And the reason why I see these people struggle is because they think they're eating less than they actually are. With a lot of people, they'll be eating healthy, eating less. They'll be working out, they'll be sweating, they'll be running. They're doing all the right things, but the scale isn't actually getting lower. Their weight isn't actually changing. Their body isn't actually changing. But again, they're eating less and they're working out. So why is it not working? Well, again, you're not actually eating as you're not actually eating what you think you're eating. You're eating more than you think you're eating. And it's because you don't track your calories. That's the reason that you don't know how much you're actually eating. In a real world example of this, I actually have a client, and this client, when they first started tracking their calories, this is actually before I had them as a client. I just recommended this as some free advice for them to, see, how much they were eating, and if it was, a low amount like they said it was. And they started tracking their calories for a week, and they lost 8 pounds in that week. And why was that? That was because they weren't actually eating what they thought they were eating. They were eating more than they thought they were eating, even though they were eating healthy, eating their fruits and veggies, and working out, sweating, and all this stuff. They were not actually in a deficit. And that's the main thing you have to be in if you want to lose weight. You have to be in a deficit. And the only way to know you're in a deficit is to track your calories. Also, people struggle with cutting because they lack a sustainable structure and a plan. If you're, if you're not tracking your calories, you don't have structure in that, and you don't actually have a workout plan that, allows you to do exercises and train in a way that allows your body to burn actual fat. And I'll get into this later in the video. There's a difference between burning glucose and burning fat, because our body uses carbohydrates and fats for energy. And so there's different ways of training to burn the different types of nutrients that our body has in store. And so that's another reason why people struggle, because they don't have a good structure and they don't have a good plan, and they don't really know how to actually target their bodies to lose the fat. And also another reason people struggle is because they're living in the moment instead of thinking long term. Again, with the people that love to live in the moment, like, that aggressive cut is so good because you starve yourself for 1, 2, 3 months and you look amazing, but then you rebound and you regain all that weight like right away after the cut's over, because you were living in that moment. You weren't thinking long term, which is again what an aggressive cut is. It's, I want to look good right now, so I cut aggressively to look good right now, but you can regain that weight super fast. And so that's why a lot of people struggle with cutting, because they're not thinking about what it'll be like next year, in 2 years. They're only just starving themselves for that 1 to 2 months, and then they look good, and then they're like, okay, the cut's over, now I'm just gonna live my life. And then when they get back on their maintenance calories, they regain all the weight and they regain all the fat, and then they look back the same how they did on day one. So what this plan will do is it'll help you succeed. And this guide, this plan, this video that I'm making right here, it'll help you succeed because it'll remove all the guesswork around calories. It'll help you create a sustainable calorie deficit, because that's what people struggle with so much. You see all these videos talking about how much you should eat, how much you shouldn't eat. This video will tell you, how much to eat. It'll make it pretty clear for you in your personal situation as well. And this video will focus on proven fundamentals, preserving muscle while losing weight, because again, you don't ever want to lose muscle is implicated in so many like health factors in your life. Like, there are literally studies that measure the width of your quad, and that is correlated to your life expectancy, how big your quad is, like crazy, right? But again, if you don't have that muscle, you're losing all your weight, you're losing your fat, you're losing your muscle, you're losing everything. That's not good for your health, because you need muscle to move around. You need muscle to pick up groceries. You need muscle to pick your son, your daughter, your grandson, your granddaughter. You need muscles to do all these things in life. And if you don't have muscles, that makes your life super hard. This video will also explain how to manage hunger and energy levels. And it will focus on like how we can support the long-term progress and how to reduce burnout and reduce weight gain. So there are 3 pillars to a successful cut. The first pillar that you should focus on when cutting is your nutrition. You already knew it was coming. What you're putting into your body is important. Your body is your temple. Take care of it. So, nutrition. Eating less calories drives fat loss. So, like I said earlier, we need to be in a calorie deficit. And so a calorie deficit of anywhere from 250 to 750 calories is what I consider sustainable. Other sources may say otherwise, but I consider that a sustainable range. A sustainable range. Now, when you start going up to 1,000 calories in a deficit, that's where we get into the conversation of you're kind of being an aggressive cutter, because eating under your maintenance level by 1,000 calories for months on end, that can be very hard on your body, hard on your mental, very stressful. You know what I'm saying? Because you're not, you might be missing some nutrients, by cutting out some foods. And so, also in terms of nutrition, like, tracking calories is non-negotiable. If you're trying to lose weight and you actually want to see yourself, lose that weight on that scale, and you want to see your body start to get slimmer, more defined, more toned, more shredded, you have to track your calories, because how else will you actually know how much you're eating unless you're tracking it? You won't. So you have to track your calories. It has to be a thing you do every day if you want to be successful, you know If you want to be successful, you have to do it every day. Millionaires don't wake up and decide, actually, I don't think I want to make any money today. I think I'm okay. I think I'll just like not make money today. It's like every day they wake up, they're chasing the bag, in one way or another. They're chasing the bag. Simply put. Also, the quality of food that you're eating affects fullness energy. So when you're eating things like snacks, like chips, like Doritos, like candy bars, and all this stuff, like that is not nutrient dense enough to really, go into your stomach and make you feel full. When you're eating things like, steak, chicken, beef, rice, pasta, like these calorically dense foods, what that does is that goes into your stomach and it makes you feel full. It makes you feel like you don't need to, eat more. When you're eating like fibers and stuff, it makes you feel full, and it also helps your energy. And there we go. Again, golden star here. Fiber helps manage your hunger. And the reason fiber helps manage your hunger is because when it breaks down in your stomach, it takes up more space. So, if you struggle with, eating like not enough, if you struggle with like your hunger when you're in a calorie deficit, you should definitely look into adding more foods with higher fiber counts into your diet. Spacing out your meals can also help you with hunger. Instead of eating breakfast at 10 and then lunch at 12 and then dinner at 3, and then the whole rest of the night you're starving. Try to space it out, dude. Try to wake up, eat your breakfast at 8 a.m., eat your lunch around 1 p.m., and then eat your dinner at like 7, or 6, right before. You know what I'm saying? But make sure you're spacing out in a way that works for you. Everybody's schedule is different, so make sure you're spacing out your meals in a way that works for you, so you're not getting fatigued or burning out at work because you haven't ate. But that being said, intermittent fasting is where you don't eat for the first half of your day. Usually, what I do is I'll wake up anywhere from like 7 to 8, and I won't eat until lunchtime. So I won't eat until 1 p.m., like 12. I won't eat until after 12 for certain, but sometimes I'll eat around 1 p.m. or 2 p.m. And then what that does is that helps me space the meals out through the later half of the day, because when I wake up, I'm not even hungry most of the times when I wake up. And if I am, it's like I just chug some water, get my hydration in, and then I can eat my foods later on through the day. So I can eat that first meal at 1 to 12, or at 1 to 2, or 12 to 2 in that time frame, and then I can eat again, at dinner time in that 5 range, and then I can have a snack around 7 before I go to bed, and that helps me feel less hungry throughout the day because I'm eating in the later half of my day, and then after 8 p.m., after 9 p.m., I don't eat again, and I sleep, wake up, repeat. So intermittent fasting is a really useful tool, and I would really recommend you looking into that if you want to see good, good weight decrease, because intermittent fasting is actually super helpful for losing weight. And also, like, when you wake up, you got that morning skinny, and you can really see it if you haven't eaten. The last thing is that caffeine can support energy and appetite control too. I honestly am not the biggest caffeine guy, but I am big into the health and research world, and there's so much research that supports that caffeine is great for appetite control. Drinking it first thing in the morning really like decreases your appetite, you know, because the caffeine just goes in your stomach, and it just I guess sends signals that make you not feel hungry. So if you struggle with, being super hungry in the morning, try to drink a little caffeine. One, it'll give you energy, and then it'll also make you less hungry. The second pillar of a successful cut is training. Yes, we need to be training to burn glucose first. And so, what do I mean by burning glucose first? Well, we need to be doing high intensity training, because this is what burns glucose. When we do high intensity training, we naturally have a higher heart rate. And when our heart rates are higher, that is what burns glucose, because we have two energy sources. We can either burn carbohydrates or fats. And when you have a high heart rate, high intensity workouts give you a high intensity workouts give you a high heart rate, which then allows you to burn the glucose and the stored carbohydrates. And so you want to be burning your glucose first thing. So you want to be doing things like your weight training or your HIIT workouts or anything that gets your heart rate up, because that will burn the glucose. And so when you're doing that, I would emphasize lifting weights with a hypertrophy focus. So what do I mean by lifting weights with a hypertrophy focus? Well, that means lifting moderate to light weights and doing higher repetitions. So we're doing repetitions in the 6 to 12 range, can even go up to like 15 and 20 as well. And we're doing shorter rest periods, 30 to 90 seconds, and we're training at a higher volume. So more sets, more exercises, which is completely opposite to on the bulk. On the bulk, you want to do heavier weight with lower repetitions and longer rest times, training with less volume. Understandable? So basically, it's just the opposite of that. The next thing we want to do in terms of training is not stop lifting weights. You do not want to stop lifting weights on a cut, bro. Because as soon as you stop lifting weights on the cut, that's when your muscles go. You lose all your muscles, dude. And now you're just like a skinny stick. Like, you know, like what? We should not be wanting to become a skinny stick on a cut. That is so unnatural and so unhealthy. I mean, and honestly, if you do want to be as skinny as a stick, I have two words for you: eat grass. If you eat grass, you'll be as skinny as a stick. Seriously. The next thing that we have to focus on in terms of our training is then the second half to the, doing high intensity training, get a high heart rate. We also want to be doing low intensity cardio, because this will help us get a low heart rate. And so low intensity cardio, that helps us burn our fat. So when we get into the gym and we do our high intensity, high heart rate training that burns all our glucose stores, then the only energy source we have left is fat. And then we do a low intensity, low heart rate cardio training. That then helps us burn the fat. You know what I'm saying? So that's what we should be doing. That's how we should approach our training. We should be going in to do high heart rate, hypertrophy work to burn the glucose stores. So then the only energy source we have left is the fat, which then after we do our cardio, our low intensity cardio, to have a low heart rate, which will then help us burn that stored fat. And we should be doing cardio every day. If you're on the cut, you should be doing cardio every day for a minimum of 30 minutes. Now, again, this is not running. I'm not saying go be an ultra marathoner, bro. I'm saying put the incline to 5, put the speed to 2.5, and walk on there for 30 minutes. You can be on your phone, you can read a book, you can listen to your music. If a buddy's next to you, you can chat with them, but you should be doing some form of cardio for 30 minutes. And again, I love incline walking, but there's so many other things. You can do the elliptical, you can do the stairmaster, you can do the bike, you can actually go outside and touch grass and be in nature. Jump roping. There's honestly so many low intensity cardio things you can do. That's what Google's for. So use it. But you should be doing your cardio every day if you're on a cut. Seriously. And honestly, 10K steps. Why not? 10K steps. Get 10K steps in. Because cardio after training really helps tap into the fat stores, like I was just saying. The third pillar that we want to focus on, and if we want to have a successful cut, is recovery. Recovery is so important. And that's why we need to get 7 to 9 hours of sleep to help us actually support our fat loss. Because your body is working while it's sleeping, right? Your body is actually burning fat while it's sleeping because there are internal processes that are taking place. You know what I'm saying? So you want to actually sleep so that your body can put in sufficient work to burn sufficient fat while you're sleeping. It's like you're doing nothing and your body's doing all the work. How cool is that? Shout out to you, body. And yeah, we want to be sleeping because poor sleep also increases our hunger, increases our cravings, and increases our moodiness. And nobody likes a hungry, moody person. You know what I'm saying? Especially if you're on the cut, that's going to be even worse if you're not sleeping. You're not eating as much as you usually eat, and you're moody, and you're craving, and you're hungry, and you're tired. bad combos. So make sure you're getting enough sleep and recovering, because getting enough sleep also helps reduce stress, because we don't want to be stressed. Because we don't want to be stressed. And when we reduce stress, this helps improve our fat loss, because when we're stressed, we have high cortisol. And when our cortisol levels are high, that holds on to our fats. But when our cortisol levels are low, it's easier for our body to burn those fats. So we want to keep our stress levels at a low. And then, of course, vitamins and minerals support overall health. So we definitely want to be looking at vitamins, supplements like vitamin D, taking things like creatine, because creatine helps with, cognitive and physical health, and creatine helps us retain our strength while we're losing weight at the same time. And looking at minerals, and other vitamins, multivitamins, magnesium, you know, beetroot, all these good things like that to support our overall health, because we want to keep a good immune system. And then again, hydrating, because hydration helps your appetite control, and it helps control recovery. Our bodies are made of 70% water, so we need to be sufficiently plenishing our water sources. And when you're cutting, I believe you should have a certain mindset and expectations for the cut. And first things first, you should understand that fat loss is not linear. When you get on the scale, every day the scale will not go like this. It will not be a straight line down. What will happen is it'll be a little like this. It'll be a little like this, because the scale will fluctuate day to day. But as long as it's, continuing in a downward slope, that's the best. You know, the first day you might be 200 pounds, the second day you're 199, the third day you're 198, and then boom, you jump back up to 199 on the fourth day. And you're like, what the heck? But then the next day you jump back down to 197, and then you go to 196, up, you jump back up to 197, 195, 194. You see how it's like that? You know what I'm saying? It's not, it's like, there's a little curves in there. But when you put the regression line on it, the regression line is decreasing, even though there will be fluctuations day to day. So that's why you should honestly be looking at your progress week to week. I believe you should be tracking your weight day to day so you can be consistent and build it as a habit, but you should be looking at progress week to week. So Monday to Monday or Sunday to Sunday, to really identify how much weight you've lost through the week. And I think, aiming for a good 1, 2, 3 pounds a week is very good, and very I think aiming for a good 1 to 2 to 3 to 4 pounds a week is very good and very sustainable. Anything over four, around four, above that, that's when you're getting a little bit unhealthy and you're getting into the aggressive cut stage. Losing weight too fast also increases muscle loss. So again, we do not want to be losing, 5+ pounds in a week if we're on a sustainable cut, because all that weight is not going to be all fat. One, it's going to be some water, it's going to be some fat, but then if you're doing it too fast, it's also going to be muscle. And so we want to minimize the amount of muscle that we're losing on a cut. And when you're doing these cuts, when you're doing a cut, just remember, consistency matters more than perfection. Showing up to the gym every day, trying to eat right every day, you know, tracking your weight every day, tracking your calories every day. That is the most important thing. you know, Maybe on Saturday you go 200, 100, 200 calories above what you were supposed to eat, and you're not in as big as and you're not in as big of a deficit as you should be. You're still in a deficit. It's just not, as big as it should be. That's okay. Everybody has bad days, everybody has good days, everybody has good weeks, everybody has bad weeks. And so as long as we don't let the bad days and the bad weeks completely throw us off our grind, and we stay consistent, that's all that matters. Consistency over perfection any day of the week. And again, a sustainable cut is what I recommend for anybody who wants to, keep the fat off and to see these long-term changes. because, sustainable cuts lead to sustainable habits. And so that's my guide on how to do a successful sustainable cut properly. Please give a thumbs up and drop a comment below. And if you have questions, please feel free to reach out to me on Instagram, shoot me a DM, or click the link in my bio and we can talk about how I can help guide you through a successful cut. Peace.